Welcome back, sports fans, to the Steel Scorpion Sports Podcast. Coming at you live from San Diego, California. I'm Jeff Miller.
Back from Santa Clara, Mark Eflin.
And Mark, training camps have opened. Places like Latrobe, Pennsylvania, Anderson, Indiana, and San Diego, California now have players rolling back into town. So we'll finally get back to the NFL dominating the news cycle. But what's funny about that is over the last 3 or 4 months, the quiet time between the draft and training camps, the NFL proved it is the number one game in town. It dominated the news cycle anyway. We thought we could take vacations. We thought we could get away from news for a while. And then Roger Goodell drops the Tom Brady 4-game suspension upheld bomb on us this past week. So what were your thoughts going on about Tom Brady?
Well, yeah, I was going to say, first of all, there is no getting back to dominating the news cycle because it is pretty much just they own every single month of the calendar now, so which is how they like it. As far as Brady, it's been analyzed to death. There's not a whole lot of new things that we can say. I did like the fact that they upheld the 4-game suspension. I kind of thought that it was going to be reduced to probably 2 games. I think his legacy is hurt a little bit by this, just partly because of the fact that he does get the 4-game suspension and because of the news coming out that he destroyed his phone the day before that he met with the investigators and they would want it. Clearly, any objective person can see that he's trying to hide something. There's no reason that he would just choose to do so if he wasn't trying to hide something, especially after his camp comes out and says, oh, yeah, he does all his phones, and then they find out his most recent one before that is still in existence. So clearly, he's trying to hide something. One other thing they'll say that I don't really see mentioned anywhere else, people say that, okay, look, he probably deflated football, but it really wasn't a big deal. Look at the Colts game. You know, they destroyed the Colts anyway. Did it really make as much of a difference? And I agree, even as a Colts fan, no. He could have had that ball at, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 per square inch, whatever he wanted. It wouldn't have mattered. They ran all over the Colts. The Colts can't stop it all for the last 10 years. Wouldn't have mattered. However, the thing that people are just glossing over and not mentioning is that if it was happening in that game, it probably happened in the game before too. Because as people have talked about, the Ravens kind of tipped off the Colts that, hey, you might want to look into this because they thought it was happening during their game as well. If you remember, that was a close game. I think they won by 3 points. They were down by 14 points in the second half. So in that game, it could have mattered. It could have made a difference. So you can't just say, oh, well, they blew up the Colts, so the whole thing doesn't matter. Yeah, maybe they deflated the balls, but big deal, they won by 37 points. Doesn't matter. But it does. You have to go back in the chain and see that maybe they wouldn't have even been in that game if they weren't deflating. So I don't think you can just quickly say it didn't matter because I think it could have.
And I think, again, this proves, as everyone says, the cover-up is always worse than the crime. I don't think Brady's being punished for potentially knowing or telling people to or just not really playing on the up and up with the deflation. Had he just come out, and I point to his camp actually as the big culprits here. He got horrible advice. If he comes out either before the Super Bowl or at least right after the Super Bowl, put this to bed and just say, yeah, well, what I told them was I like the balls less on the lower end, but they must have taken that the wrong way and didn't test it and they got it below that. My fault. I'll pay the fine. This would be over. But he hid everything, and like you said, he destroyed his cell phone. Now, I actually did hear some comments that there are a group of people out there that do destroy cell phones on a regular basis. So apparently Tom Brady is one of them. Unfortunately, that group is usually referred to as drug dealers or criminals. I don't know that he wants to be lumped in with them. I've heard other celebrities now are, being asked, do you destroy your cell phone on a regular basis? And most of them say, if you're going to do something, you pull the SIM card out and destroy that and just swap SIM cards or something. You don't destroy the phone. So that was a little odd, especially the day the investigators coming to talk to you. But I'm sure that was just a coincidence. But
yeah, sure.
But enough on Tom Brady. I think this isn't over. It's gone to federal court, which is just where we want to see our football games played in a New York courtroom, so that'll be great. At least Court TV will have something to show for the next however many weeks this takes. Hopefully in the next few months we will have a resolution and Brady will sit out his games or get it overturned, and we can never again speak of Deflategate as it relates to on the field activities. But speaking of vacations, Mark, I know you were up in Tahoe when this news broke that the suspension was being upheld. So I'm imagining, everything up in Tahoe is pretty exciting. So did you have any good stories while you were on vacation prior to Tom Brady dominating your news cycle?
Well, I needed to make my annual over/under NFL bets, and there's 4 casinos that are all real close to each other, so it's very convenient. You can do very easy price shopping. And so I picked up sheets from the Caesars property and then from the Hard Rock Hotel there, which is a William Hill property, and looked at the over/under sheets. And there were 2 teams that I was basically looking at, one of which was the Colts. It was 10.5 at one casino, 11 at the other. So I was considering the over. So obviously at that point you'd want to use the 10.5. Slightly worse odds, but I think that 11-5 is probably their floor when I look at their schedule. I'd rather not do an over/under bet with 11, just because I don't want to tighten my money for 4 months and then potentially walk away if it's just a push. So I kind of like the 10.5. But what I ultimately wanted to do, I like betting the under for an over/under. We had 2 years ago, we both did the Raiders. Last year we did the Panthers. So I settled on the Browns, and the Browns at one casino were 6.5, and at the other casino they were 6.5. But at one casino it was negative 160, and at the other casino it was negative 145. So pretty easy decision there. You definitely want to get the better return for your money. So I went to go place a bet on the Browns under 6.5 and negative 145. While there, I saw a prop sheet and decided I'm going to put a little bit of action on these 2 things as well. So I saw more passing yards in the coming season. Andrew Luck versus Drew Brees. Brees had more yards last year, but they're switching to a running offense this year. They traded for Max Unger. Jimmy Graham is no longer there. Kenny Stills is no longer there. It looks like they're going to be more of a rush-based offense. Meanwhile, the Colts added Andre Johnson and a first-round draft pick, wide receiver, Philip Dorsett. They're going to be throwing a lot. So I was going to put money on Andrew Luck, and he was negative 115, and Brees was negative 105. And go to place the bet, he puts it in, it comes up on that little computer. Andrew Luck is now negative 165. And this sheet was like 3 or 4 days old. So it's already gone from negative 115 to negative 165. So I'm like, okay, scratch that. It's not worth it at negative 165. It's not near the value that it was at negative 115. The other one that I liked was more rushing yards in the coming season, Alfred Morris versus Eddie Lacy. Eddie Lacy is in a powerful offense. They're more likely to have a lot of second-half leads where Eddie Lacy is getting the ball. He's pretty durable. Other than potential concussion, he hasn't really missed any games. Alfred Morris, his yards and yards per carry have gone down each of the seasons. Plus, they've added Matt Jones there this year, so it seemed like a pretty easy bet with Eddie Lacy. He was negative 120, so I'm going to put money on that. He puts it into the thing, pops up, negative 150. Like, come on, it's already gone from negative 120 to negative 150 in a matter of a couple days. So I end up canceling both of those. The guy at the taking the bets gets rather frustrated with me because he has to cancel them out and undo them. And he tries to start explaining to me how betting works and the fact that if people place money on a certain bet, the odds change. And he tells me that, there was a celebrity golf tournament there the weekend before. Some guy came up to bet $300 on a golfer that was 40-1. His friend stepped up right behind him to place the same bet, and now the odds were 20-1. First of all, I understand how the odds work. Second of all, I also know that it's not just this hotel. Like, they're part of a big chain of other hotels. A $300 bet, first of all, should not drop one golfer from 40-1 to 21. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, unless their total bankroll to back up these bets is like $1,000 or something. And for both of these 2 bets, they've changed from negative 120 to 150 and 115 to 165 in a matter of a couple of days. Like, to me, it seems like they'd have to be getting like large bets, like thousands and thousands of dollars. And yet he's making it seem like if they get a couple $100, they're shifting the odds back dramatically, which just seems crazy to me.
Well, I called a couple bets in ahead of you, sorry. So I put like $5 down on Luck, and it clearly skewed the odds. My bad.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
All right. Well, speaking of the Over Under podcast, we had that previously. You got the other prop sheets. So, in a couple weeks, probably 2 weeks before the season starts, we'll have another podcast where we'll go out and we'll discuss some of the best prop bets we want to touch on before the season starts. So, definitely tune back in for that. But that's not the purpose of tonight's podcast. It is, as I said, the opening of training camp. That means football season is back in action on the field. And what better time, Mark, to start talking about fantasy drafts than when the players return and report for camp. So tonight, what we're going to do is run through a fantasy mock draft. We're going to be using www.fantasydraftwizard.com. Pretty good site out there. It lets you be the only one in the game, and it'll have, in our case, we'll set a 12-team league. We'll set up the Steel Scorpion rules with the PPR, with the same roster that we have, with the 4 points for a touchdown pass, for all the same tenth of a point per yard on rushing receiving. And that way we'll be able to then have the computer with its AI and its algorithms. It'll pick the other spots based on our rules. And that way you don't have to wait for 11 other people in some of those other mock draft sites. They run through theirs really quickly, and it's back to you. You'll check who's been drafted, and you can go through it a little faster, right?
So I have set it up. I've set it up with the Steel Scorpion rules, and roster limits and all that. So we'll do a PPR. Now, on the site, you have to choose either standard or PPR. Now, at Steel Scorpion, we're half-point PPR. I think that's the best balance between running backs and wide receivers. I think full PPR is almost shifts a little bit too much to wide receivers. Standard, I think you have enough credit to wide receivers, especially in the passing game. The half-point is a perfect balance between the two. But so given those choices, we're going to do this as a PPR mock. But I set it up with a roster construction of 1 QB, 2 running backs, 2 receivers, a tight end, 2 flex spots, a kicker, and a defense, and 8 bench spots. And then we're going to draft from the 7 hole tonight, just to make it a little bit more difficult for us, because I think that's kind of a spot where things start to get tricky in the first round. By the 7th spot, you've already seen the big 4 running backs off the board for sure. Those 4 being Peterson, Charles, Bell, and Lacey. And then you'll probably see another 1 or 2 of the top running backs, maybe Lynch, maybe Foster, maybe Forte, and then maybe Antonio Brown as well in a PPR or even half PPR. Antonio Brown is definitely part of the top wide receiver off the board. So we're going to draft the 7 hole, make it difficult for us, and see what kind of roster we can put together here.
All right, so you overruled my let's pick first rule.
Sorry, what's up?
You overruled me. I wanted to be in the 1 hole. I wanted to pick first in the draft, and you moved us to 7th?
Yes, 7th.
I think picking first is challenging. You don't know who's going to go ahead of you later, and so it's much more challenging than you think.
It is challenging from the fact that you don't pick again until pick 24 of the draft. But
all right, we'll go with 7. It's much more challenging. I agree. And just so everyone's aware, what we'll do is we'll walk through this. Mark and I will alternate our picks. We'll let you know for the first couple rounds who's been drafted in what spots, because that's really where the money players are, and you'll probably want to just understand who went 1st to 6th and who went 8th to 12th and then back around. Once we get through 3 or 4 rounds of that, we'll touch on important players. We'll let you know if somebody interesting pops up in some of the rounds, and definitely guys that we targeted, maybe where they went, because we might say, hey, let's not take our quarterback yet. Let's hold out for another round, and we'll grab Roethlisberger in the 9th, and then he goes in the 8th. Well, okay, we'll let you know that he's not going to be there for us. But speaking of that, Mark, I think you and I have similar strategies when it comes to roster building, but we should probably explain to the listeners what we think of when we go into these drafts. Because clearly when they get to spot 7, some of them might be thinking, wow, the top tight end or top QB is there. That's what they'll go for. So why don't you give us a quick overview of what they can expect from us?
A quick overview of how I'm going to be approaching drafts this year is that I guess start with QB. I'll probably wait until late. I'll probably be one of the last teams to draft my QB. I think it's a pretty deep QB class. You can wait until late. You can still get someone like Tannehill, Eli Manning, maybe Stafford, Phillip Rivers, maybe even Tom Brady if everyone's you know, forget the fact that you're not going to have him at the first 4 games. So I'm going to be waiting on QB. Probably there's one tight end that I might consider taking if he's still there, like in the 4th or 5th round. That would be Travis Kelce. I'm okay with not getting Gronk or Graham, especially Graham. Just going to an offense that is more run-based and probably won't be passing as much as the offense that he just came from. So if Kelsey's sitting in the 5th round, I might consider him. Otherwise, I'll probably wait on tight end as well. And then I'm just going to try to load up on running backs and receivers as much as I can for the first 8 or 9 rounds or so. And I'll probably end it, if I'm building this roster, I'll probably end the draft with 2 QBs that are starting at one on the bench, probably 2 tight ends. And then other than that, my bench spots are going to be, the other 6 spots would probably be, 3 running backs, 3 receivers, something like that. The kicker in the 18th round. And then defense, I would say maybe 17th round, but if I'm sitting there and there's good defense that's still on the board in 16th round, I might consider taking them there. So, is yours different to that?
No, I pretty much follow that same philosophy, definitely with the quarterback. Tight end, I'm even less likely to take than you. You mentioned Kelce. I just don't think I'd waste my 5th round pick even on Kelce. I'd probably be inclined to wait. Other than that, everything seemed more in line, although I'll probably end with 3 or 4 kickers on my team and 2 or 3 defenses because you can never have enough, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, maybe not. Well, then with that, why don't we get this show on the road and let's see how FantasyDraftWizard.com treats us tonight, picking out of the 7-hole.
All right, so I'm going to, since there's 2 of us here, I'm going to make the, we're going to be able to come to a consensus on all these picks. So I'll have the ultimate say on all the odd rounds. You'll have the ultimate say on all the even rounds. Yeah, we will give each other some input. So in the first round, the top 6 players off the board in order were Bell, Peterson, Charles, Lacey, Forte, and Brown. So pretty much just like we talked about, the big 4 were the top 4. Forte went 5th. He's pretty valuable in PPR. He had 102 receptions last year. Probably won't have as many this year with Tristan not being there, but still. And then Antonio Brown, top receiver off the board at number 6. Some of our top options, you can give me your input here before I make a pick, but at running back, there's Foster, Lynch, C.J. Anderson, McCoy. And then at wide receiver, there's Demarius Thomas, Joyce Jones, there's Bryant, ODB. If you want to look at Gronkowski, he's there. And then, of course, the Lock and Rodgers are both there. But we both said that we wouldn't be taking a QB this early.
Yeah, so I would ignore QB. I'd ignore tight end. I mean, even though you could have the best, you could have Gronk or Graham. Ignore it. Wide receiver, I feel there's a lot of depth at receiver. And even coming back around, you mentioned a couple guys there that I think one of them might still be waiting. Thomas, Bryant, Calvin Johnson, Julio Jones, ODB. I think they're all going to start getting taken, but one of them is probably going to fall to us in the next round. So I'd probably go running back here. Lynch is a workhorse. We know that. And at PPR, he's not as great. I'm curious, why has DeMarco Murray not been mentioned?
He is there. I did not mention him because he is pretty low on my draft board. In fact, honestly, the only reason that you will ever see DeMarco Murray on any of my teams this year is if he somehow falls to the 3rd round, which, let's be honest, that's not going to happen. So you will probably not see him, or you will not see him on any of my teams this year. Main reason being he's had injury issues in the past. I know he played all 16 games last year, but he had a buttload of carries. That is the technical actual amount, a buttload. He had over 500 total touches between regular season and postseason because he also had a lot of receptions. I think he's going to break down this year. The injury risk isn't worth it to me, especially in the first round.
And that's why I set you up there. So who do you like in the first round then? As I said, I'd probably go running back, and I think Lynch is probably the best, but it's your call.
Lynch is definitely good. I like him. Foster is up there as well. His injury history scares me a little bit. He's getting older. I think I'm going to make maybe a somewhat unconventional pick, maybe slightly early for him at the number 7 spot, but going to go with C.J. Anderson. He looked really good the second half of last season. I think he total points, either PPR or not PPR. He was in the top 3 for running back points in the second half of last season. He looked really solid. Even though they lost to the Colts, he looked really good in the playoff game. He does get a fair amount of receptions. And Gary Kubiak is now the coach. He's kind of known for having good running offenses. And so I think C.J. Anderson is going to have a really good year this year. And he's going to be their first choice.
All right. Well, I would say you should discount how he looked against the Colts because every running back looks good against the Colts. So you need to, temper that piece of enthusiasm. But the rest of that logic made sense.
This is true. So we took C.J. Anderson. Right after that was Gronkowski, then Bryant, ODB, Darius Thomas, and Marshawn Lynch. Go all the way to 112. And then the first 5 picks of round 2 were Julio Jones, McCoy, Arian Foster, Megatron, and A.J. Green. We ended up for our second pick. All QBs are there that we're passing on assuming. The top running backs available for your pick are Justin Forsett, Marco Murray, Jeremy Hill, Frank Gore, and the top receivers available: Jordan Nelson, Lynn McCollum, Alshon Jeffrey, Mike Evans, DeAndre Hopkins.
What's odd? Did you say Jimmy Graham was still available?
I did not mention that he's available, but yes, he is. He is the top tight end available.
No, I'm not going to take him, but it's interesting, just one of the listeners to hear that and we're picking at 218 here, or 26, the 18th pick overall, and Jimmy Graham's still on the board. Interesting. I'm going to pass on him, but why don't you give me your analysis of who's there, what you would do, not knowing that we have C.J. Anderson, and then I'll let you know who we're taking.
Since we already have a running back, inclined to look at receiver, but receiver is really deep this year. And if we took a second running back here, then I think we could take receiver for probably the next 3 or 4 picks. But I could go either way. As far as the receivers go, I like Alshon Jeffrey. I've always liked him. I think he's going to have a big year. Brandon Marshall isn't there. I think Alshon Jeffrey is going to get a ton of targets this year, and especially in the red zone. In the past, Jay Cutler would always look to his good buddy Brandon Marshall in the red zone. I know this because I've owned Alshon Jeffrey in the past. It the first year with Alshon Cutler would just automatically look toward Marshall. Marshall's not there, so I think Alshon Jeffrey's in for a big year. Cobb and Nelson and the high-powered Packer offense are also good choices. If we went running back, I already mentioned that I'm not taking DeMarco Murray, even in round 2. Justin Forsett, he might have a good year this year. Trustman is not there, so he should get a lot of receptions. But he also had a career year last year. I don't see him topping that. He's just been a journeyman before that. But I think Jeremy Hill is going to have a big year in Cincinnati this year. So personally, I would either go Hill or Jeffrey. But it's your pick.
So I did narrow it down. I also thought Hill was the best running back available. But looking at what might be there in the next round, if we needed another running back, guys like Melvin Gordon, Carlos Hyde, even later on, you can grab guys like Todd Gurley, the other half of Cincinnati with Gio Bernard and some others, Latavius Murray out of Oakland. So we might be able to get an okay second running back as it comes back either in the 3rd or 4th round. So I would probably here take a running back or a wide receiver, and there's another reason, because on the off chance, and I know you, on the off chance that Andrew Luck fell to us in the 3rd round, you would be very tempted to take Andrew Luck.
I mean, if Luck or Rodgers are sitting there in the middle of the round, I think that's pretty good value at that point.
Right, and so since that could happen, you'd hate to go running back, and then if the draft works out that way and you go quarterback, you haven't touched wide receiver. So I'd rather at least touch wide receiver here and keep my options open on all the positions. But I'm not going to go with Alshon Jeffrey. I do not like Jay Cutler throwing the football to anybody. I don't care if he's good friends or not with anyone. He is a head case. I don't know that he'll survive, and if he does get benched, do you know who that means comes in and throws the ball? Yes, your man Jimmy Clausen. And I'm not banking on my first receiver having Jimmy Clausen throw the ball anytime this year. So I would actually go with Aaron Rodgers' good friend, Jordy Nelson.
Okay, that's your pick?
That is our selection. So we are now C.J. Anderson, Jordy Nelson in.
All right, so we took Jordy Nelson, and off the board after him, there were 12 more players. I'll quickly go through them. Murray Hill, Cobb, Forsett, Luck. There goes the QB. Andre Johnson, pretty high at the end of the second round. And then Alshon Jeffrey, Hilton, Mike Evans, Jimmy Graham, second tight end, taken at 3.4. Kelvin Benjamin, and then Aaron Rodgers at 3.6, right in front of us. So, with those two QBs off the board, we can safely say that we probably won't be looking at QB until probably the 8th round or later, maybe the 9th or 10th. So, give me your thoughts. Right now, the top choices available at running back are Frank Gore, Lamar Miller, Mark Ingram, C.J. Spiller, Andre Ellington. And then at wide receiver, we have DeAndre Hopkins, Brandon Cooks, Emmanuel Sanders, Julian Edelman, and Jordan Matthews.
Honestly, one name out of that entire group jumped off the page at me, and it wasn't a running back. Those guys all sounded kind of the same to me, honestly. I mean, some are obviously have better pluses than others, but when you mentioned DeAndre Hopkins, that just jumped off the page at me, and it told me he is now the number one. Andre Johnson, who somehow went in the second round for who knows what reason, but he's gone. DeAndre Hopkins is the man. He was great last year. He was probably the man last year, to be honest. I think Hopkins is in for a big year, and if we had him as our second receiver, I'd feel very comfortable. But it's your pick, so let me know your thoughts.
Yeah, I'm tempted by quite a few players here. I think Gore could have a decent year in Indy. Lamar Miller had a breakout year last year, was pretty good. But they have a Jay Ajayi there now who may steal some of his touches. You have the two Saints running backs, Ingram and Spiller. They're going to kind of counteract each other. Ingram's going to get kind of the early down carries and probably the goal line carries, but Spiller's going to get all the receptions. I think we can fill in some decent running backs later. I would like to get a receiver here, and I tell you, I'm tempted between DeAndre Hopkins, for some of the reasons you mentioned, and then Brandon Cooks. The hype on Cooks this year is huge. We already talked about New Orleans lost a ton of targets out of their offense with Jimmy Graham gone and Kenny Stills gone. I think Cooks is going to have a big year. He was injured in week 10 of last year. Before that, he was doing pretty well. He was getting more integrated into the offense. Breeze is going to have to throw the ball to someone. And with the half-point PPR, I think a lot of people are saying that Cooks may end up with 90-plus receptions this year. He's not a huge guy. He may not get a ton of touchdowns. But then again, Danny Hopkins has never had a ton of touchdowns either. I think his career high so far is 6 in the season. Andre Johnson was there for both of those years. He tended to get more of the red zone targets. He's not there anymore. But tough choice. I'm going to roll the dice and give us Cooks here. He could be in for a big year, and we'll hope that his upside comes through.
All right. I completely disagree with your pick. Good job.
After Cooks off the board, we had Bernard, Gordon, Miller, 3 straight running backs, Emmanuel Sanders, Frank Gore, and then Hopkins, your guy, went 4.1, and then Ingram, Jordan Matthews, Spiller, Charles Sims. That's pretty high for him, in my opinion, but he's off the board at 4.5. We are now up for pick 4.6. Your top choices on the board. There's still been no more QBs since Luck and Rodgers, so I think you know kind of the top QBs beyond those two. And then at running back, the top choices are Andre Ellington, Alfred Morris, Jonathan Stewart, Carlos Hyde, Latavius Murray. And at receiver, Julian Edelman, Keenan Allen, Brandon Marshall, and Golden Tate. And tight ends still just the 2 off the board. So the top available tight ends would be Greg Olsen and Travis Kelce. As far as who I think we should take, we have Nelson and Cooks. We have two receivers. We could probably use a second running back at this point. Andre Ellington kind of scares me a little bit. I think David Johnson's going to steal some of his touches. I think he's injury prone. Alfred Morris in a PPR league, in our half-point PPR, he is, almost worthless from a receiving standpoint. He just doesn't do much. As I mentioned earlier, his total yards and yards per carry have declined in each of his years in the NFL. Jonathan Stewart for Carolina. I know he had a decent year last year, but he seems to always be injury prone. Carlos Hyde is sitting there. Not too crazy about him either. I think the Niners are going to be behind quite a lot this year, and he may not get the touches that he needs. So I kind of talked myself out of all those running backs. I think I would maybe then look at Julian Edelman. In a PPR standpoint, he's going to get around 100 receptions. So I know that's not a lot of great input for you there. So who are you going to take for us here?
Well, it's funny. You mentioned all those running backs, and as you were talking through, I was thinking the same thing every time you brought up a name. Didn't love this guy. There are reasons I wouldn't want that guy. And then later on, I looked down the list. There are a couple other guys I think maybe that we'll now have to focus on around 5. One or two of these guys might still last till round 5, but other guys, some of the younger guys will start to come into play later. Maybe not even around 5, but much later, with the T.J. Yeldon out of Jacksonville. You might maybe later on we look for a Tevin Coleman out of Atlanta, something like that. So I didn't love the guys you mentioned running back, and I did love the PPR machine that is Julian Edelman. So that is our selection. Even before you said that, I was thinking, wow, we could really solidify our wide receiver. Since you went risky with Cooks, you're hoping for the upside there, and we have a sure thing in Nelson. If we lock in with the PPR gold that is Julian Edelman, suddenly we have Nelson and Edelman, who we know what to expect from, and we have a lottery ticket in Cooks, who could be better than both of them. Pretty solid wide receiver group.
All right, so I draft Edelman here, and then 12 more picks come off the board. I'll see if anything stands out. Out of all 12 picks, it's all running backs and receivers. See if any name stands out. I think our first rookie's off the board, Amari Cooper at 4.8. Martavis Bryant at 5.2. He's getting a lot of hype this offseason. It still seems a little bit high to me at 5.2. And we are now on the board at 5.7. There's still only been 2 QBs taken. I'm still not tempted to take Wilson or Manning or Breeze or Roethlisberger. Like I mentioned earlier, I think we can still get value later down the board. We should probably look at our second running back. Some of the names on the board at this point: Latavius Murray, T.J. Yeldon, Todd Gurley, Joseph Randall, Amir Abdullah. And then wide receiver, we already have 3, but just to throw it out there, the top names available: Allen Robinson, Jeremy Maclin, Roddy White, Vincent Jackson, Larry Fitzgerald. And then there's still only been 2 tight ends off the board, so all the others are available. What are your thoughts here?
Well, my thought is, knowing that we have 1 running back and 3 receivers so far, I would lean towards running back. And the list you rattled off, Latavius Murray caught my ear. I think he's due for a better year in Oakland. He actually wasn't bad last year, and I think they want to establish the run. And David Carr, I think, is going to be okay. Did I say David Carr? He's probably not going to be okay. But I think the Raiders could do a little better on offense. They can't be much worse than they were 2 years ago, and they seem to be on the right track. So Murray's an option there. From the rookie standpoint, I do like Yeldon's chances of getting a lot of touches in Jacksonville, but man, they're going to be bad. So I don't know how much he'll get in the passing game either. I just don't know how that offense is going to work, because that offense didn't work last year. So could be a little confusing there. The Detroit running backs, Abdullah definitely has some potential there in a PPR system, a good quarterback. The wide receivers will open things up. He might get some good PPR action, might get some of the goal line touches. So that'd be an option. So I'd lean away from wide receiver, even though There are a couple names there that are interesting. I'd probably go running back, but I know you also might want to look at Travis Kelce at this point. So what are your thoughts?
I think we either have to take running back or Travis Kelce. I think that if it was, and there's 10 more picks until our next pick. Some other people that are drafting may even consider Greg Olsen or Martellus Bennett ahead of Kelce. Kelce is number 3 on my 10 rankings for this year. I might be willing to roll the dice and because we do need a running back. I might be willing to roll the dice and take a running back and hope that Kelce is still there in the 6th round. But in the format that we're doing here, the next pick is going to be yours. So I will ask you this question. I will pose this for you. I can take Kelce here, and then you'll pretty much be stuck needing to take the top available running back. Or I can take a running back here if you will commit to taking Kelce in the 6th round if he is there.
I would definitely consider him in the 6th round. I can't say
I need more than consideration.
Right, and I can't say I'd commit to it because what if one of the running backs we just talked about is still there in the 6th round, and it would further our team. I'd probably lean towards Kelce if you took a running back here because we'd be 2 running backs in and 3 receivers. But I can't say with 100% certainty I'll take Kelce because I just don't know who else we'll be faced with at that point.
Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and take Travis Kelce here. I think he's going to have a big year, and I like the fact that then we don't even need to consider tight end again until like round 13 or something. Like in round 13 or 14, we can pick up an Owen Daniels or a Larry Donnell or a Dwayne Allen or something like that. But I like the fact that Kelce gives us a premium tight end, and during the season, he's someone that we'll be able to start at tight end without thinking about it, and we'll only need that as a guy in case he's injured or during his bye week. So we're going to get the 3rd tight end off the board. We now have Travis Kelce. And the good news is there were 10 other picks, not a single running back. So you have all the running backs from the 4 that were still available. In those 10 picks, there were 9 wide receivers off the board and 1 QB. Russell Wilson went as 5'11" as the 3rd QB. Another rookie off the board, Nelson Aguilar, kind of high, 5.12. Another rookie, Kevin White, at 6.3. So far, just to recap, we only have C.J. Anderson at running back. We have Jordy Nelson, Brandon Cooks, and Julian Edelman as our receivers. We have Travis Kelce as a tight end, and we are now up at 6.6. I will just tell you the top running backs available, assuming that's what you want. If you want other positions, let me know. But running back, still the same guys: Murray, Yeldon, Gurley, Randall, Abdullah, Drake Bell, Bugatti Blunt.
So, knowing those are the running backs, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking we definitely need a second running back at this point. We have 3 pretty solid receivers. Receivers are still pretty deep. I'm looking at some of the names available. We could still get someone good with the next pick. We don't need to think about QB for still a few more rounds. We're set at tight end at this point. Of those running backs, I personally am not super high on Latavius Murray. I don't want Drake Bell. To me, it comes down between Yeldon, Gurley, Randall, and Abdullah. Randall, kind of a lot of if it gets 65, 70% of the carries behind that offensive line, he could have a pretty big year. And then the other 3 are rookies: Yeldon, Gurley, Abdullah. Can't really know what exactly to expect out of them, and I guess the same with Randall though too. He's not that proven. He hasn't had that many carries in the NFL. I think I would actually maybe lean towards Gurley. If we were doing this draft in late August, we would have a better idea of his health status and what his carries would look like the first few weeks of the season. But probably, Trey Mason's probably going to get the majority of the carries for at least the first few weeks. But by the time, week 6, week 7 rolls around, Gurley may be a workhorse.
Yeah, but can we really go 6 weeks without getting anything out of our second running back? That makes it a little dangerous. So I would probably, had we already had two running backs, I would love Gurley as my third. That's not going to be an option for us. I do like the idea of the Joseph Randall lottery ticket, but again, I love lottery tickets as my third, not as my second. So that worries me a bit. The rookies, I don't know what to say. I mean, as I said before, Yeldon, Jacksonville's offense stinks, but he'll get a lot of touches. Abdullah, I think, will end up getting the most touches in Detroit, and that offense should be pretty good. And I'm a lot higher on Latavius Murray, apparently, than you are. I think he's going to get a lot of touches, and I think with Carr at quarterback, things are looking up. And, Oakland, I think he even stays in on some of the passing downs. Run DMC's gone, so there's less competition for it. So we are going to take Latavius Murray.
All right. I'm not a big fan, but
that makes up for your Brandon Cooks draft pick.
Yeah, maybe so. So we have Latavius Murray as our second running back. I'm probably going to look at running back here because I think we need a third one, especially having Latavius Murray.
Well, honestly, whoever we took, I think we would have looked at running back again because it was either a lottery ticket or a rookie, and you'd still not feel comfortable that that's your second running back, right?
Well, and the good news is there's been 12 more picks off the board. Only 2 of them were running backs. Now, there was 2 that we were considering, Todd Gurley and Joseph Randall. Both got taken. QB-wise, Peyton Manning and Matt Ryan were the 4th and 5th QBs off the board. And the 4th and 5th tight ends also came off the board, and Greg Olsen and Martellus Bennett. And then there were also some receivers taken in there as well. I think we need a third running back here. I think our choices come down to T.J. Yeldon, Amir Abdullah, LeGarrette Blount, and then after that, there's also Tevin Coleman, Shane Vereen. So still some decent options out there. I think that T.J. Yeldon is going to get a lot of touches in Jacksonville this year. They drafted him early second round. Denard Robinson looked okay last year, but I think they want to use him more kind of as a special weapon, use him as a backfield a little bit on third down maybe. Toby Gerhardt was a complete bust, may not even make the roster. T.J. Yeldon, the one thing that scares me, the whole Alabama running back thing. We've been burned by T-Rich as Colts fans, but that's kind of where I'm leaning. What are you thinking here?
Yeah, as I've mentioned on a couple occasions now, I think Yeldon's going to get a lot of touches in a bad offense, and I think Abdullah's going to get a good amount of touches, but he does have Joey Bell to compete with in a better offense. So if you're going for the sure thing and the number of touches, then I think Yeldon's the way to go. Although you did mention Tevin Campbell, who I really like, and knowing that we could probably get him in the next round, that might open up your thoughts that you could go, if a Campbell or a Vereen is there in the next round, maybe you could go wide receiver this round.
By Campbell, I'm assuming you mean Coleman?
Yeah, sorry, I am looking at the wrong... I am reading off of a book here, and for some reason I'm staring down at the wrong name, which is pretty awesome. So yeah, I like Tevin Coleman, and I like Shane Vereen. I think both of them with PPR, and Coleman with the upside to be a lottery ticket, because if he ends up being the starter in a good offense like Atlanta, he could really bust out. So it does give you a little more capability to say, maybe look at a wide receiver if there's one there that caught your eye.
Well, the top receivers that I at this point are Brandon LaFell, Eric Decker, Anquan Bolden, Pierre Garçon, Kendall Wright. None of those kind of jump off the page at me.
They did not catch your eye.
Yeah, nothing's jumping off the page. We have 3 pretty good PPR receivers already. We would definitely need to add a 4th one here fairly soon. But with only 2 running backs, I think we need a third. It's going to come down to 3 rookies for him. Yeldon, Abdullah, and Coleman. They all kind of have their reasons that you should take them. At least in Atlanta, I think Coleman should be pretty good. I think Devontae Freeman's going to be the main third down back. He'll get a lot of the receptions. This is a PPR league, so we need to consider that. Yeldon or Abdullah, it's kind of a coin flip. I'm going to go ahead and take Yeldon.
Fair enough. Let's just hope the curse of the Alabama Mark Ingram, T. Rich, Eddie Lacy's first year, the curse of the running back doesn't hit again.
Yeah. Okay, so there were 10 more picks off the board. Only one of them was a running back. It was Rashad Jennings. So all the running backs that we were considering still there. There were, however, 4 QBs taken. Breeze, Cam Newton, Roethlisberger, and Eli Manning right in front of us, as well as 4 more tight ends. Not that we need to worry about that because we already have Travis Kelce. So there are now 9 QBs off the board. We are in round 8. In case you want to consider QBs here, Tony Romo, Ryan Tannehill, Stafford, Rivers, Brady, Kaepernick, all there. Running back, a lot of the names that we'd already talked about. Abdullah, Blunt, Coleman, Vereen, still all there. And at wide receiver, Van Bolden, Garcon, Wright, and Rashad Perriman.
Well, I don't love those names of wide receiver. And at running back, we've talked about a number of them. And obviously, I think in a PPR, Shane Vereen actually has a lot of value. We don't 100% know how he's going to be used with the Giants, but I can't imagine he's not going to get some of the same usage as he did out of the Patriots, just maybe on a more consistent basis. And Abdullah, definitely some upside there. It is interesting you mentioned the quarterbacks. With that mini run on quarterbacks, the option is, do you go someone like Stafford now, or do you go wait another round and hope that Romo's there, or Tannehill? Because, I mean, how comfortable would you be, and again, give me your advice here, with Tannehill as your starter?
Well, yeah, I was actually looking at QBs as you were talking about that. So there's 9 off the board. This is a 12-team league, so that means there's 2 other teams besides us that don't have a QB yet. So you have to figure those 2 teams might be considering taking a QB in the next round. I'd say the top 3 at this point are Romo, Tannehill, Stafford. So question is, are you comfortable with getting one of those? If we wait around and 2 of those get taken, are you comfortable with, the third that's not taken? Or do you want your choice? To me, of those 3, Tony Romo has finished as a top 10 fantasy QB for like 4 or 5 years in a row. And yet he continually gets, drafted as the, 10 to 15th QB off the board. They're going to have another good offense this year. As Brian is back, he's got his long-term contract, he's happy. They're probably going to have to go more than last year because they don't have DeMarco Murray. The offensive line will still be good, but no matter how decent Randall and McFadden and Dunbar are, they're not going to be as good as what Murray was last year. So I'd be tempted to take Romo here, but I'd also be tempted to pick up someone like Shane Vereen, Kevin Coleman, or Abdullah that we talked about last round.
Yeah, I think I don't want Ryan Tannehill out of those 3, but I'm willing to roll the dice because Tannehill may get taken, and if I get either Stafford or Romo, I'm okay with that. Another name you mentioned, a QB that's still going to be available after that, is Tom Brady. If you get him as your backup, that isn't the worst thing in the world. Sure, you can't use him the first 4 weeks, most likely, but having Tom Brady after that isn't a horrible thing to have, is it? So I think I'm going to skip quarterback and hope that either a Romo or a Stafford survives to the next round for us. And instead, I'm going to try and get us more of a sure thing than we've had to get away from the rookies, and I'm going to go Shane Vereen.
Okay, that's a good pick. I like that. I think especially in the half-point PPR league, I think he's going to get a ton of receptions for the Giants this year. So, adding Vereen to our roster, and picks flying off the board here. 12 more picks went off the board. There were 4 tight ends in those 12 picks. Again, we're not concerned because we have Kelce. We don't need to back up for a while. 2 QBs came off the board. They were the exact 2 that you predicted, Romo and Tannehill. So there are now 11 QBs off the board. I don't know for sure that it's each of the team has one. It's possible their team has already selected their backup, but nevertheless, 11 off the board. So top of the available now: Stafford, Rivers, Brady, Kaepernick. And then a lot of the running backs that we were looking at before just went off the board. Abdul's gone, Blunt's gone, Coleman's gone. Coleman and Freeman, the two running backs in Atlanta, went back-to-back, and Joey Bell is gone. So recap of our roster at this point, we're now making our 9.7 pick. Running backs, we have C.J. Anderson, Latavius Murray, T.J. Yeldon, and Shane Vereen. Receivers, we have Jordy Nelson, Brandon Cooks, Julian Edelman, and at tight end, we have Travis Kelce. So at one point, we had 3 receivers and only 1 running back, and now a few minutes later, we have 4 running backs and still just 3 receivers. So I think at this point, we either need to take QB or receiver. I already told you the top QBs available. Top receivers at this point, a lot of the same ones I mentioned before: Brandon LaFleur, Anquan Bolden, Garrett Garcon, Kendall Wright, and Brashad Perriman. In fact, it's the exact same 5. So there were no wide receivers taken in the last.
Yeah, it sounds like we hit the wide receiver cliff a few rounds ago, and more or less LaFleur has been that next guy for a couple rounds in a row now. And there's a reason for that, I think, because there must have been a big talent drop-off and stat drop-off between, rounds 6 and 7 and where we are now. So honestly, I didn't love any of those wide receivers. I still don't. Didn't love them last round. Didn't love them the round before. I think in a round or two, there might actually be some better receivers that I like more. Because I'm not a big Bolden guy. LaFleur doesn't excite me that much. But as we get, Perriman being a rookie, we already have enough worries with our running backs. Let's not, double down on a rookie receiver. But there are a couple other receivers later on that I think might be equal or better value. So I'm tempted to tell you that we should probably just lock up our QB and be done with it.
Yeah, I'm tempted to take QB as well, but the fact that there are 11 QBs off the board, I'm going to roll the dice and hope that teams aren't starting to already look at their backup QB. I think we can actually go another round, potentially even 2, and still get a decent QB. There's still some, even if someone takes Stafford, there's still Rivers, there's still Brady. I'm not huge on Kaepernick, but he's there. Flacco and a Trestman offense may have a decent season. After owning Cutler last year, I've vowed to never own him again, so I won't even mention him anymore from this point forward. Carson Palmer actually was off to a great start last year before he got injured. That offense should be better. John Brown should improve. They've updated their offensive line, so he's someone to look at possibly later as well. There is one wide receiver. You mentioned you didn't really like any of those. There's one that kind of stands out to me. Maybe it's just a hunch, but I think he's going to have a good year this year. So I'm going to add Kendall Wright to our team. And picks are flying off the board here. It's very running back heavy. So of those 10 picks, 8 of them were running backs. Luckily, we're kind of going the opposite of the grain here. We're kind of like a salmon swimming upstream where we've already got 4 running backs. All these running backs are going off the board. We're not too concerned about it because we're fairly decent there. Anyway, 8 running backs and 1 tight end, Jason Witten, and 1 QB, which was Tom Brady. So the risk on QB still paid off. So all those names that I mentioned before, Stafford, Rivers, Kaepernick, Bridgewater, they're all still there. At wide receiver, still the same, LaFleur, Bolden, Garcon. And if you wanted to consider running back, Reggie Bush, Ryan Matthews, Roy Halou, David Cobb. At this point, I would maybe want to go ahead and get that QB. Teams might start taking their backup QBs at this point. So if you did have a strong preference, probably between either Stafford or Rivers, I think now would probably be the time to grab them.
Yeah, again, I still don't love any of those receiver names you're saying. I mean, LaFleur doesn't do anything for me. You didn't mention one. I don't love Garcon, by the way, but Terrence Williams, I imagine, is still there right below that group, right?
Terrence Williams, he is there. Yeah, he's below that group. There's some other names. There's Ruben Randall, Kenny Stills, Percy Harvin, and a good friend of Terrence Williams, who I don't know if you're saying that you do like him. I kind of don't, but he is there.
Yeah, I'm just saying that there's a group like him that's going to come up later that I think are just almost just as good as those names that you mentioned at the top. So I think, unfortunately, I'm going to have to be the one to pull the trigger on the quarterback. I was hoping you would do it last round, so I didn't have to draft a quarterback, but apparently you weren't going to help me. So I think we probably could wait one more round as long as we got a Stafford or a Rivers. I think we'd be okay. I don't love. You mentioned a couple of other names. I'm not a Kaepernick guy. Beyond that, Bridgewater, I'm not excited if he's my starter. Yeah, so I think just to guarantee that we would get one of the guys we want, I would say take Matt Stafford here. Living in San Diego, I don't love Phillip Rivers without Antonio Gates for 4 weeks. Stafford's offense, definitely with Megatron, with Golden Tate, with the running backs, tight ends, everything seems to be in place for him to have a good passing year. The only detriment he has is Jim Caldwell as his coach.
Okay, we added Stafford. 12 more picks are flying off the board here. And let's see the highlights. There were 3 more tight ends. The first defenses came off the board, and the Seahawks went at pick 10-11, and it apparently started a mini run on defense because then in round 11, the Texans and the Bills also went off the board, as did Phillip Rivers. So just one further QB off the board. So just a lesson for next time. We maybe potentially could have waited all the way to round 11 to grab a QB.
But if we didn't take Stafford, instead of Rivers, they may have taken Stafford, and then you're stuck with Rivers. And if you don't love him, and I didn't like him as much as Stafford. If I thought they were equal, I would have forced it on you. But I actually liked Stafford more than Rivers. And sitting in San Diego, I get a lot more news on Rivers. So he's going into the last year of his contract. Antonio Gates is out for 4 games. The offensive line had some retirements, injuries, some other issues going on. Doesn't sound great. And he hates Los Angeles, so if they announce they're moving to LA, he may well just, mail it in and just move back to his Mississippi home or something. So,
let me break down our roster here real quick. We are now at 11.7. Our entire starting lineup is now filled. Now that we picked Stafford last round, so we have the entire except the kicker and defense.
There you go.
Our lineup, our starting lineup of offensive players, I guess kicker is an offensive player too. So, okay, our non-kicker defense starting lineup is filled, and then we also have Shane Vereen and Kimball Wright on the bench. We have 6 more bench spots. My thinking, as I mentioned at the top, is that of those 6, we'll probably have a second QB and a second tight end, which leaves us 4 more spots to get a couple receivers and a couple running backs. Even though there's been a mini run on defense here, I'm not even possibly going to consider defense here in the 11th round. So basically it comes down to wide receiver or running back. At wide receiver, again, a lot of the same names. Rafael Bolden, Garcon, Bernard Herman, Ruben Randall, Kenny Stills. At running back, Roy Haley, Darren Sproles, Fred Jackson, Terrence West, and a lot of mediocre players after that. So what are your thoughts?
Well, we're even up 4-4 on receivers and running backs. Neither one of the groups sounded great to me, but obviously when you get to this point, it is personal preference and some guys that you hopefully have scouted out and are leaning towards. I can't believe Brandon LaFell has now been the top receiver on our list. Is this going on 5 rounds?
It's been a while.
I think from like round 7, he became the number 1 receiver, and he's still sitting there, and yet apparently everyone else feels the same way about him that I do. And the uncertainty with Brady probably doesn't help him, especially. I'd probably look towards running back here. If I feel like the groups are pretty even, and I do, I'd probably look towards running back because that's usually the scarcer position, and maybe we can find a diamond in the rough here that would help us out. Not time for a backup tight end yet. Definitely not time for a backup QB. And you didn't want to take a defense or a kicker here. You could be the first one to take a kicker. Just remember that.
I will not.
You will not remember that, or you won't take a kicker.
Both.
Darn it. But yeah, I think I'd lean towards a running back, and I'd say, use your personal preference, because that's really what I tell people when they ask me about drafting. When you get down to around 12, 13, it's all about taking a guy that you think has some upside, but maybe it's also a guy you like, a guy that went to your college, or a guy that, if you did want to take a homer pick, this is the time to do it.
I'm going to take a running back, and the fact there's one that I like. And the funny thing is, I like this guy. I've done some mock drafts this year. He tends to end up on a lot of my rosters. I think he's going to have a pretty good season, especially in the PPR format. But it also kind of works out that in this case, he's handcuffed for us. I've never been a huge proponent of handcuffing, but since you took Latavius Murray for us, a little early in my opinion, but I'm going to grab Roy Halou because I like him anyway. But the fact that we have Murray, and that if he goes down, if he gets injured, which he's had injury issues in the past, then I think Roy Halou can be a 3-down back for the Raiders. So I'm going to add him to our team.
And I'm with you. I don't usually love handcuffs, but I almost don't feel like this is a handcuff. And I would say the same thing to people this year that draft Cowboy running backs. It's not so much a handcuff as it is you just don't know which one is going to be good. So it's not your traditional handcuff of you take Arian Foster knowing he's going to get hurt and then you take his backup for those 3 games. You're taking Run DMC and Joseph Randall. If you did that, I'm okay with that as long as you cut one of them after 2 weeks when you know which one's the starter.
Yeah, sure. After Halou, 10 more picks came off the board. The 4th defense came off the board, and the Jets. There were 3 more tight ends off the board. There were 2 QBs, Bridgewater and Kaepernick, and only 1 receiver. But you'll be happy to know it's Brandon LaFell. There was no longer the top QB or the top receiver on our board. So you were now up for pick 12.6. I'm assuming you're going to be looking at one of the next receivers and tight ends. It might potentially be time to be considering our backup tight end. There have now been 20 tight ends taken, so a lot of teams have their backup tight end. So I guess you could argue that, maybe there's probably not going to be too many teams taking 3 tight ends. So we could wait. As far as tight ends go, where you now Heath Miller, Vernon Davis, Ladarius Green, Eric Ebron. But receiver, you got Bolden, Garcon, Perryman, Randall, Stills. Running backs, Fred Jackson, Terrence West, and then a lot of mediocre backup options.
Well, the way you sell that is so nice. So why don't you give me your input on what we have to look at here?
Yeah, well, I see this list of running backs and just nothing inspires me. There's guys like Jerick McKinnon, who, unless Peterson gets injured, he will probably not get more than 1 or 2 carries a game. There's Denard Robinson, who might get a couple catches a game, but unless Yeldon gets injured, he's probably not very fantasy relevant. There's Lance Dunbar, who I suppose could be somewhat of a letter ticket in the Dallas offense. There's Matt Jones, Monty Ball. It's really kind of a poo-poo platter of running backs at this point. So my preference, I'd probably looking at wide receiver or tight end, but we're pretty late in the draft at this point. Like you said, it's kind of personal preference, so I'll just turn it over to you to make a pick here.
I was really going to go with Brandon LaFell, but it sounds like he got taken.
He's gone.
So that's very disappointing to me. So give me the top couple receivers again, because I was leaning towards receiver, and one of the names I thought jumped out at me.
Receivers, you've got Anquan Bolden, Pierre Garcon, Rashad Perryman, Reuben Randall, Kenny Stills.
It was Reuben Randall. We didn't get ODB, but he had a great rookie season. Victor Cruz is coming back, but I think Reuben Randall is going to have a good year. I think they're going to need to pass. We have Shane Vereen, so that is a little worrisome there. But if I look at tight end, I don't love any of the names you said. Is Austin Safarian Jenkins already gone?
He is gone. He was taken previous round.
That's unfortunate, because that would have been a good backup tight end, kind of a lottery ticket. And the
Good upside, yeah.
and the Colts guys, did you say one of them was available? Or
Dwayne Allen and Kobe Fleener are both gone.
wow, it's a little early for them, I think. But I'm just gonna stick with it. Then I'm gonna say let's grab Ruben Randall, get a receiver that if Victor Cruz goes down again, which is possible, or if I think ODB will also get a lot of coverage rolling his way after the 3-finger catch, the 1-finger catch, the middle finger catch. I think Randall has the potential to give us some good upside there.
And you like Randall more than Kenny Stills?
I do. I know you like Stills more.
Yeah.
You've mentioned Stills a number of times, but I am not a. Who's throwing Stills the ball?
You don't seem to be a Tannehill fan.
I am not a Tannehill fan. I apologize. I like his wife a lot more than I like him.
All right. I have added Ruben Randall to our team. Some more picks coming off the board here. Let's see the highlights. 3 more quarterbacks. Carson Palmer, Joe Flacco, Jay Cutler. And 1 more defense, the Rams. 1 more tight end, Heath Miller. So at this point, we're pick 13.7. I'm either going to get us, at this point, probably either a backup tight end or a backup QB. Let me see how many QBs are off the board. There's 19 QBs off the board. I think most teams draft 2 quarterbacks, so there's still going to be another 4 or 5 taken. As far as options that we have, there's Bradford, Dalton, Winston, RG3, Alex Smith, Mariota. And then at tight end, you know what? I think I'm just going to go and pull the trigger here on Larry Donnell. I think he has decent upside this year.
Don't I get to give my input?
You can, but I don't know if you're going to talk me out of Larry Donnell.
I really think Larry Donnell would be a good pick here. I like going with backup tight end before backup quarterback. I think that really makes a lot of sense, but it's up to you. I'd probably go Larry Donnell. So what are you thinking?
Yeah, Larry Donnell.
Oh, wow. That's very good. Very convenient.
All right. We are now set at tight end. We don't even need to look at it for the rest of the draft. We have 3 more bench spots to fill. One of them will be our backup QB, so we probably have our 3 bench spots will be a QB and then another running back and another receiver, and then we still need a kicker and a defense. After Donnell went, some running backs off the board, 2 more defenses, plus Sam Bradford and Jameis Winston. So, if you want the backup QB, there's now been 21 quarterbacks off the board. The top remaining options are Dalton, RG3, Alex Smith, and Mariota. And then at running back, your top options, Terrence West, James White, Lance Dunbar, Dan Herron. And the top receiving options, Anquan Bolden is somehow still there. He's been one of the top options for the last 6 rounds, I think. Anquan Bolden, Rashad Perriman, Kenny Stills, Percy Harvin, and Dwayne Bowe.
Well, unfortunately, I am going to take backup quarterback, or I'd let you get Kenny Stills here, except for it's my pick, and I would not take Kenny Stills. But out of all those names, did any of them jump out at you?
I like Stills. Bolden is like 45 years old at this point, but he's old reliable, and I think he's probably good for probably another 70, 80 receptions this year. But backup QB, none of those names kind of jump out at me. Andy Dalton has potential to have some good weeks.
And that's where I was leaning. It was Andy Dalton. Now, I'll be honest, I have not studied bye weeks here to see if Andy Dalton and Matt Stafford match up.
Yeah, they don't have the same bye week.
They do?
No, they don't.
And I don't know who Dalton plays in Stafford's bye week. I usually look that up as well. I would be much more prepared in a draft that I'm paying for. But I would be leaning towards Dalton. Out of all those names that you mentioned, a backup quarterback, I'm not getting saddled with RG3. I wasn't going to get saddled with Jameis Winston. I don't love the idea of Marcus Mariota on perhaps the worst roster in football. not leaving me a lot of options after that. So I think we're pulling the trigger on Andy Dalton. We've got the Crimson Cannon, the ginger pop gun, the
red rocket.
That's it, the red rifle, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it.
Good.
Okay. So we are now down to 2 bench spots, a kicker, and a defense. There's still not been a single kicker off the board. We could break the seal here, but we're not. After Andy Dalton, it was mostly a mix of running back and wide receivers. There was one more defense, which was the Eagles, and one more QB, which was Mariota. So, on our bench, we need one more running back, one more receiver. Anquan Bolden was actually one of the receivers taken in the last round, so he's no longer top one available. None of the running backs jump out at me. We're now in round 15, and I know that you are not going to take him later, so I am going to take... Can you tell me who?
You're taking Kenny Stills after I badmouthed
Kenny
him.
Stills.
Two rounds in a row I've badmouthed him, and you're still taking him?
Well, here's the good news, okay? You can take this as good news. He's our only player on our roster that has a bye in week 5, so you don't want, bye weeks to be, main determining factors in who you pick, but it can be a tiebreaker, especially this late in the draft. And being the only one with a bye in week 5, he's good bye week filler for all the other receivers that we have. None of them have week 5 byes, so that's your good news for that pick. After Kenny Stills was taken, it was mostly running backs, one more defense, and one more tight end. Not that we care, because we're set at tight end. We have 3 picks left: a defense, a kicker, and the bench spot. The bench spot will probably be a running back, though you did take a wide receiver. So let me tell you, as far as top running backs, there is not a whole lot. There's Anthony Thomas, Kansas City, who apparently has running back and wide receiver eligibility. There's Brandon Oliver, Kyrie Robinson, Bilal Powell, Marcel Reese, and then a bunch of, T-Rich, honestly, if you want T-Rich, he's there.
Wait, where does T-Rich play?
Does it matter?
We could triple down on the Oakland backfield.
Oh, God. Oh, my God. No. There have been 9 defenses off the board. The top ones available are the Patriots, Panthers, Ravens, and Packers. And every kicker is available. So, there you go.
Who were the top defenses available?
That would be the Patriots, Panthers, Ravens, Packers, and Bengals.
Patriots, Panthers, Packers. What? All the P's got left?
What's that?
So all the defenses that start with P were left over?
With P?
Patriots, Panthers, Packers. Didn't you just say that?
Oh, yes.
All right, keep up. I know it's late. Wait, which kickers are available? I'm kidding. You don't have. You don't.
All of them.
So you're telling me they're all available?
They're all available.
Well, I am going to do you a favor, and I'm going to force you to make the decision between running back and receiver in the last bench spot. And
I will say this.
I'm going to grab a defense.
Wait a second, though. We always say, and I make fun of people who don't take kicker in the last round. We always say kicker in the last round, but there are rare exceptions, and this could be one. If you don't have a strong choice between those defenses, and if there's none of these, other late round guys for our bench that stands out at you, if you're indifferent between someone like, Brandon Oliver or Kyrie Robinson, if you really don't care between those, this could be the rare case where maybe you could justify taking a kicker here and you still end up with the other players that you would have gotten anyway. Also, the one thing that it does, if we do take a kicker, by breaking the seal, it probably kicks off a little kicker run. So by the time that our next pick goes, maybe half of them are kickers, which at this point is a good thing for us because players that we weren't going to consider anyway. So
that is
just throwing it.
that is an
throwing it
interesting theory. Now, if you were to take a kicker, of course, the first kicker you take is.
I suppose Gostkowski, but you could also make an argument for Vinatieri.
Well, if you took Gostkowski, and he is rated number one across every different ranking I've seen, the problem you have is he has a bye week in week 4.
Yeah, that's true.
So that doesn't benefit you nearly as much as if he had a week 10, which is Vinatieri's. I could see the logic of grabbing of Gostkowski here and saying, hey, I've just got my kicker set for 9 weeks. That's great. If I'm only going to get my kicker set for 3 weeks and then I have to shuffle him out anyway, and I'm not going to hold 2 kickers, it seems like I'm wasting a pick here, so I'm not going to go kicker anyway. But I am. I am going to go defense. And I am going to take one of the defenses with a P.
Okay.
I'm going to take the Packers because they have the later bye week. And because I like them better.
Okay, so you got the Packers. The Patriots had a week 4 bye. The Panthers had a week 5 bye. And you're using the tiebreaker of the bye week to the Packers with a week 7 bye.
Woohoo!
All right?
Week 7.
Okay, so we have the Packers as our defense. Some more picks come up the board. It looks like mostly running backs and receivers. Nick Foles was in there, and the Patriots. We are now up with our second to last pick. There's still not a single kicker off the board.
This is the smartest
honestly,
algorithm ever.
I do like it. I do like that it's waiting for kickers till the end. And I do always say take the kicker till the end. But looking at our bench, the last player we need is another running back. There's none of these guys that are really standing out to me. There's guys that I'm like, I need to have that player. So I'm going to do actually what I just talked about a second ago. I'm going to start a kicker run, and by the time it gets back to us, it'll probably be a lot of kickers off the board, and so we'll still have any of those players that we needed from before. And based on bye weeks, and based on a high-scoring offense, and factoring in the new extra point rule, the fact that it's further back, and some kickers actually lose a little bit of value. For example, I think Cody Parkey, the kicker for the Eagles, he's in a high-scoring offense, but I think Chip Kelly is much more likely to go for a lot of two-point conversions than other coaches are. Therefore, Cody Parkey loses some value. He may lose, 6 or 7 extra point opportunities over the course of the season, possibly more, because of Chip Kelly going for it, whereas I don't think Chuck Pagano would do that.
You mean because of Tim Tebow?
Well, potentially that as well. He could be a 2-point weapon.
Let me reiterate. Because of Tim Tebow, now I can actually put down that we discussed Tim Tebow on the podcast. This is excellent. That's worth 100 hits right there. Thank you, Mr. Tebow.
So I pulled the trigger. I took Vinatieri.
You took him over Hauschka and Tucker?
Yeah. Well, partly using the logic that I said, Pagano's not going to go for 9 2-point conversions, and Vinatieri has a week 10 bye. So we're
they
good at kicker.
had week 9 buys. Hauschka and Tucker both have week 9 buys, and they're in offenses that are also semi-conservative, but they kick a lot more field goals being conservative than the Colts.
We'll see. I've already taken Vinatieri. Off the board after that, a few wide receivers, 1 running back, which was Ryan Williams of Dallas, who actually got cut last week. So I guess he's Ryan Williams, the free agent at this point. And then there were 5 kickers off the board. We are on our last and final pick. We either need to get another running back or a receiver. At running back, you have Anthony Thomas, Kyrie Robinson, Brandon Bolden, T. Rich, Chris Polk is kind of an interesting lottery ticket. Some people think that Alfred Blue is the backup behind Arian Foster. I think by the time the season starts, it's actually going to be Chris Polk. So he is an interesting player that if Arian Foster goes down, Chris Polk becomes very valuable. And a wide receiver, you've got Michael Crabtree. Boy, how far has he fallen the last couple of years? Michael Crabtree, Malcolm Floyd, Eddie Royal, Stephen Bailey, Marquise Lee, Kenny Britt, and then a bunch of, this is your choice. We, the balance at our bench, we probably need a running back and a receiver, but none of the running backs stand out to me. My one piece of wisdom that I would throw at you is that Eddie Royal is sitting there. Eddie Royal and Jay Cutler are best friends. When they were in Denver together, I think Eddie Royal had approximately 193 receptions one year. And I think Kevin White is going to be, he's a
Injured?
major physical specialist.
You mean he's going to be injured like he is now?
Well, not only is he injured, but John Fox doesn't play rookies. And so Kevin White isn't going to see the field as much as people think. I think Eddie Royal, especially in the PPR format, I think he's going to have a decent season. He's one of those things that you take him in the last round, and by week 2 or 3, if he's not doing anything, or if White does emerge in the preseason, then you cut him and move on and whatever. But anyway, final pick to you. Those are my thoughts.
Is CJ1K still available?
Who?
CJ1K.
Pretty sure he is. Are you planning on him? He is there. Are you planning on him getting signed with somebody?
I am actually. I'm not going to take him, but I wanted to bring him up as a potential for other people in the next couple weeks. If you do your draft early, there have been rumors that he's had conversations with the Cowboys. Now, can you imagine if he did sign with the Cowboys? He's easily as good as the other guys there, because they're all pretty average. And I'm not saying he's good, he's average as well. But he'd have the potential to be the guy that wins the starting job in Dallas, and that is a lottery ticket.
I will say that if CJ1K were to sign with the Cowboys tomorrow, I think in mock drafts next week he would all of a sudden be going in like the 13th, 14th round, something like that. So
I agree. Now, to your point, I don't believe he's going to get signed, and at this point in time, he's not signed, so I'm not going to take that lottery ticket. But for others, I wanted to make that comment. And there are a couple others. You mentioned, who was it that just got cut?
Ryan Williams.
By the Cowboys, right?
Yep.
To free up a spot on their roster at running back. So maybe it is more of a likely occurrence than I thought. But guys like that get cut right now, not worth looking at. But guys that hadn't signed yet, there's a chance that maybe they're waiting around for the right situation. Somebody like CJ1K, maybe it's worth taking a flyer late in the round. But I, like you, really don't believe in Kevin White. I didn't think they should have drafted Kevin White where they did. And I thought, wow, he's already hurt. He's starting on the PUP list, I believe. So they can activate him sometime in the preseason. But that's not a good start for a rookie. And as you said, John Fox is not going to play a rookie, especially if he doesn't show up to camp and can practice for the first, say, 2 or 3 weeks. That's not going to get you into the starting lineup. So I did like your analysis on Eddie Royal. I'd actually had him targeted as one of my sleepers. I'd rather go running back here, but seriously, you rattled off a list of running backs that I'll be able to get 3 weeks from now. So let's go with Eddie Royal.
All right, we're going to take Eddie Royal, and one more thing I'll add. You mentioned CJ1K, Ahmad Bradshaw as well as another guy that's out there that's unsigned. He got up to actually a great start with the Colts last year, like through week 7 or whatever it was when he got injured. He was putting up major fantasy stats because he was getting a ton of PPR points. He was getting a ton of receptions, and he is suspended for the first game of the season. That might not help his odds of being signed by someone, but if he does end up on a team, he's someone that would be a good late round lottery ticket.
Yeah, and I'd also echo that between now and the start of the preseason games, and then a couple cuts in, keep watching those names, the bigger names that are out there that maybe are just waiting to find a home, watch for injuries. I mean, you guys all know this, but things will change. If Mark and we sat down and did this draft next week, even without changing our list, I'm certain we'd have a much different outcome here, and we would probably change who we want just based on some of the information that comes out of training camp.
Yeah.
All right, well, that is our first official ever Fantasy Live mock draft for Steel Scorpion Sports. So good job, Mark. You kept us on track. We got through all 18 rounds. And to recap our lineup, we went with C.J. Anderson first, then Jordy Nelson, Brandon Cooks, Julian Edelman. Grabbed our tight end in the 5th round, Travis Kelce. We went with Murray, Yeldon, Vereen in a quick 3 running back run. Shifted back to wide receiver with Kendall Wright. Added our quarterback, Matt Stafford. So in round 10, we grabbed a quarterback. And we even talked during the draft, we maybe could have waited till 11 if you're okay with Phillip Rivers. And then we went back to the running back well. We grabbed Roy Halou, so we're doubled down on Oakland, which is good. We went with Ruben Randall, got our backup tight end in Larry Donnell. Added Andy Dalton, the Crimson Pop Gun. Kenny Stills, you finally were able to get 3 rounds after I said I didn't want him. The Packers D, you gave us Adam Vinatieri in the 2nd to last round, which I will mock forever because you, Mr. I don't take a kicker until the last round, took a kicker. And then I grabbed a Eddie Royal at the end. All in all, I'd say we're pretty strong at receiver. When you go Nelson, Cooks, Edelman in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th round, it makes sense that you're stronger receiver. We filled in some of the gaps behind them with Wright, Randall, and Stills, and then Royal at the end. I think we got a lot of PPR upside there. A little weak at running back. I'll be honest, I'm not as sold on C.J. Anderson as you are. And then I'm not as sold on Latavius Murray as I am. And then you went with Yeldon. Then I went with Vereen. I think we may need to watch the waiver wire once the season starts.
Yeah, I think so. I think we're a little bit weak at running back, but I like our bench running backs in Vereen and Halou, especially Vereen. I think he's going to get a lot of receptions in that offense. I'm looking at all 12 teams' rosters, and I'm looking at the RB2, and I'll just list off the 12 RB2s here. You've got Hyde, Ellington, Forsett, Jonathan Stewart, Jeremy Hill, Alfred Morris, Latavius Murray, Charles Sims, C.J. Spiller, Lamar Miller, Mark Ingram, Frank Gore. I think we probably have the 2nd worst running back 2 out of all the teams. I think we're probably ahead of Charles Sims, who got taken earlier than he should have. But besides that,
and what's worse is we don't have the top running back 1, which you would hope. We probably have the 7th or 8th best running back 1. So definitely running back is not a strength for the team. And I would ask, you said Jeremy Hill was a running back 2 for someone. So obviously they took a running back in the 1st round. I'd wonder who they have at receiver because obviously they're really strong at running back, but you still have to play 2 receivers and 2 flexes.
He's got Forte and Hill at running back. Matt Ryan is his QB, and his top 2 receivers are a 2nd-year guy and a rookie, and Kelvin Benjamin and Amari Cooper. Personally, I think Kelvin Benjamin is going to regress a little bit from last year. He'll still have decent stats, but not as good as what he put up last year. Amari Cooper should be decent in Oakland, but again, he's a rookie and has a 2nd-year QB going to him, so that team could struggle a little bit. In fact, he loaded up a lot of rookies. He's got Devin Funchess on his team. He's got Devontae Parker on his team. He's got David Johnson on his team. He's got Todd Gurley on his team. So I don't think his team would make the playoffs if this league were to actually play out.
Yeah, so even though you hear that we have a weak running back duo, as you said, we've got some good bench strength with Vereen. Yeldon has potential, and Halou has potential. So we're not the strongest at running back, but other teams that went running back, they're going to be weak at other spots. So all in all, not a horrible draft, except for your Kenny Stills pick. And
You'll see. Kenny Stills is going to have a good year.
And your decision to take a 2nd Oakland running back. I mean, it was bad enough I took the 1st one, but you took the 2nd Oakland running back.
Well, I think that actually worked out. I think he's going to have a good year anyway, but the fact that we already had Murray just kind of worked out that if Murray goes down, which either way there's a decent chance, then at least we have Halous waiting in the wings.
Yeah, maybe we should have made an agreement beforehand. We just wouldn't draft people from Oakland, but too late. And of course, we probably wouldn't want to draft people from Tennessee or Jacksonville either. Oh, wait, you did that.
I did. Yeldon and Wright.
Two historically bad offenses, and you're taking skill position players. I'm impressed.
Though I will say, after you do this, it ranks your teams based on the total projected, just a score. And of course, you can game the system. If you continually take the highest player available according to these rankings, then obviously you're going to have the best team. Like Brandon LaFell.
We should have taken Brandon LaFell in the 5th round.
And Anquan Bowles and all these other guys. Like, you can game the system, of course, but even just kind of taking it the way that we did, it gives us the 3rd highest score among the 12 teams. And the first team, so I'm assuming this is projected points for the year, 1460 for the first team, 1448, and then we're at 1438. And then there's a drop off. The 4th team is 1406. So it's, even though we didn't game the system, it still ranks us as the 3rd best team coming out of this draft.
Yeah, no, I think it's because of our wide receivers at the flex positions are going to be really nice. And that's going to make up for the fact that we will rotate through a lot of different running backs at our 2 running back spots. We likely will never, if we don't have to, we'll never have 3 running backs in our lineup.
Probably not.
All right, sir. Well, great job on the draft. This is pretty impressive stuff. So for those, again, that want to try this and really see how a quick draft can go, because had we not discussed everything, we could probably get through a draft in under 5 minutes. Go out to fantasydraftwizard.com. Pretty awesome site there. You can set up your own rules, how your points are scored, and watch it flow. And then come back to steelscorpionsports.com and sign up for our leagues. You can practice on their Draft Wizard, and then you can come and apply that knowledge to the Steel Scorpion Sports Leagues. Go to our www. I'm going to drop that in every time now.
I was gonna make fun of you anyway. So
steelscorpionsports.com, and you can click on the leagues page. You can sign up. Definitely check out the blogs. That's probably how you found this podcast. You can read about the rules. Like I said, go to fantasydraftwizard.com to do your mocks. Come back to us to play your leagues. We have leagues ranging from as little as $50 to as much as $1,000 leagues, and a number of leagues in between. So definitely, I think you'll find with mulligans, multipliers, and the all-play format, we have a lot of unique characteristics that make us a better species of fantasy football. So again, steelscorpionsports.com. Visit us often. So Mark, anything you want to add before we sign off tonight?
Yeah, just that we'll try to get in a couple more podcasts before the season starts, including the prop bet one that you mentioned. And then I'm looking forward to the season. I think the season starts, I think I saw on Twitter today, the season kicks off 43 days from today, something like that. So it'll be here for a minute.
Oh, I thought you said you were looking forward to this weekend. I know the Community Shield is this weekend. Big game between Arsenal and Chelsea. Who you got?
Team B?
I'll give you a hint. Come on, you Gunners. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. So Arsenal it is. So the EPL starts up. Very near and dear to our hearts. I know you're very excited, Mark. So we'll probably have to record that to get us through football to get us to football season.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, as you said, we'll have another podcast coming up with the prop bets. We'll have another fantasy advice right before most of you do your fantasy drafts closer to the end of August. And then we'll come back week in, week out during the season. We'll give you some updates from the Steel Scorpion Sports Leagues. Another unique characteristic you get from us is we podcast every week after the games of the week, and we also comment on what's going on in our leagues. So you do something miraculous in the league, we'll make note of it. You multiply the right guy, you score the most points, you'll probably be mentioned in a podcast for all of eternity. You'll have fame and fortune. So definitely come back and check us out, steelscorpionsports.com. With that, I'm signing off from San Diego. This is Jeff Miller.
Signing off from Santa Clara is Mike Huffman.
Talk to you later, sports fans.